Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Britt, and welcome to my segment, Evidence-Based Eclectics. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about inactivity. Of course, we all just love to lay around and binge watch Netflix, watch YouTube videos, and be on our phones all the time, on the TikToks and all the other stuff. But did you know that inactivity is a lot more serious than we give it credit for? Inactivity is the root of a lot of chronic diseases such as heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, certain types of cancer. Did you know there's even a link between inactivity and behavioral diseases like depression and anxiety? Inactivity can be considered the fourth leading cause of premature mortality in individuals. So what defines a sedentary individual? Sedentary individuals are people who get less than 75 minutes of vigorous activity or 150 minutes of moderate level activity or a combination of both per week. According to a lot of studies, up to 25% of individuals do not get the recommended levels of activity per week. When we look at sedentary versus moderate and vigorous activities, we measure in METs. That stands for a metabolic equivalent of task. One metabolic equivalent of task is the amount of energy that your body would expend during low-level activities, like say sleeping or just laying down flat. Again, it's your baseline level of activity. Sedentary behavior is activities like watching TV, writing, or reading. That consumes about 1.5 minutes. It's about the bare minimum of activity that you can get while you're moving. To put that in perspective, other activities like walking take about 3 minutes. Bike riding is about 6 minutes, and jogging at a slow pace is about 11 minutes. Walking is considered a moderate level activity, whereas bike riding and jogging are considered vigorous level activity. So we know what the studies say about adults, and 25% of adults don't get the recommended. But what about children? According to some studies, up to 76% of children ages 6 to 17 don't get the recommended amount of daily activity. Now, the recommended daily activity for a child between the ages of 6 and 17 is higher. They recommend up to 60 minutes of physical activity per day. That's moderate or vigorous intensity activity. Even younger children need even more. Whereas the recommendation of 60 minutes is for children between the ages of 6 and 17, children between the ages of 3 and 5, it's recommended that they get almost constant physical activity. And instead, they're on tablets, they're on smartphones, they're watching the TV. This is a huge problem. They need to be more active than that so that they can develop and grow right. And before everybody goes on that this is just an American study and just an American problem, these studies are worldwide numbers. Also, they don't account for how much people have been sitting doing virtual education, missing out on sports and other things during the pandemic. This confirms something I've seen in the clinic too. Children don't seem to be getting enough exercise. They don't seem to be able to do things that most adults take for granted, such as standing on one leg. How many children lack the coordination and balance to be able to do that would shock you. My concern is we're robbing children out of their childhoods. We're robbing them of both quality and quantity of life. The other problem is once these children reach adulthoods, their behaviors are pretty much set. Are they going to have problems just doing basic things? Are they going to start to develop chronic problems like diabetes, high blood pressure at a younger age? Are they going to be able to do manual labor jobs or technical jobs without injuring themselves? Again, these numbers were before COVID. We can only imagine that it's gotten worse since then. So what do we do about this? In an editorial by Feigenbaum and others, published by a publication of the American College of Sports Medicine, they proposed a radical idea. They recognized that most children don't actually receive intervention for these problems until after they've started developing health problems such as obesity, diabetes, or high blood pressure. So they identified what they call a pediatric inactivity triad. Triad has 3 parts. The first part identifies children who are physically inactive. They're getting below that 60 minutes of recommended activity per day. The other half is pediatric dyspnea. Basically what that means is these are children who are physically weaker. They have less muscle development and they can't develop as much power to do things like throw or kick. The third part is physical illiteracy. They're lacking the motor control and development that's crucial for children into adulthood to be able to enjoy movement-related activities. These 3 parts of the triad are self-reinforcing, meaning if you're not getting enough physical activity per day, you're also not developing enough muscle strength, and you're also not developing coordination to be able to do movement-related activities like sports. The usefulness of a triad basically helps clinicians be able to identify people who may be falling into these categories when they themselves may not be showing signs that are worthy of intervention yet, such as obesity, high blood pressure, or diabetes. Having such a tool helps a clinician be able to identify these children and intervene sooner. But what do we do once we intervene with a child? How do we intervene? There are a couple strategies for helping prevent a child from falling in this triad. For one, encouraging playtime, reinforcing PE education in schools, bringing the family together, and encouraging sports at a younger age. But what about the child who already falls within the triad? The authors of this editorial recommended that children who fall within the triad be targeted for intervention. And who better to target intervention than physical therapist? Yes, physical therapy once again is saving the world one child at a time. And not only are physical therapists movement experts, we also educate our patients. We can educate parents and the children to be able to better learn coordinated activities. We can help improve and measure strength and power. We can also help educate to make sure that injuries don't happen along the way. You know, there are even physical therapists who specialize in pediatrics. They see only children and they do a great job at it. Pediatric physical therapists can take exercises for adults and make them fun and engaging for children. They can educate parents so that they know how much activity their child needs to be getting. Pediatric physical therapy is a specialty we need to target pediatric inactivity triad. So in summary, what do we need to be able to better address this looming future problem? Early targeted intervention and education of parents. Also, environmental factors. There are plenty of YouTube channels that talk about how our cities aren't designed to make us healthy. They don't have enough parks. They don't allow us to walk. They don't allow us to move. I've linked those down in the description along with my sources I used for this video. Thank you again, and I hope this helped you find your meaning in movement.